Very good afternoon, and thanks for clicking on to the 101 edition of the Global Weather and Climate Report live stream. It is Sunday, the 21st of July. I hope everybody is well wherever you are today. First and foremost, I want to say a thank you to Lindsay, as ever, for taking the time out to moderate today's live stream. So I greatly appreciate Lindsay for helping me out with that. And a massive thank you to everybody for tuning in. We've currently got 12 concurrent viewers at the moment. Hello to Trevor Hall, Mark Kinnish. We've got Katrine. She was the first one in the live chat, followed by Ben Enty. Very good afternoon to you as well, Ben. Hope you're having a good afternoon so far. The sun is trying to come out here at Vogan Weather HQ. It did reach 20 Celsius yesterday, only just by the way, reaching 20 Celsius. I think it was the fourth straight day, which surpasses June, which was 3 days during the month to achieve 20 Celsius. The maximum so far this summer is 24. That was achieved back last month. The maximum so far in July here at my personal weather station, I believe, is 21.4, I think it is. So we will, as per usual, go through the live chat, say hello to everybody, try and answer a couple of questions as well before we get into the content of today's video. So, yeah, we've got Trevor Hall, Mark Kinnish, Paul James. Very good afternoon to you, Paul. Hope you're well. And we've got Ben Enty, as I've already said. We've got Katrine in the chat this afternoon as well. So we've got 12 concurrent viewers. As ever, you know the drill. Help me out by hitting that like button. Let YouTube and indeed myself know that you're enjoying the content here on the channel. And we also have our good friend Gavin Partridge. Good afternoon to you, Gavin, from the Tars. Hope you're well this afternoon, my friend. And I hope that angle continues to improve week by week. It certainly has been a challenging time for you, my friend. And I hope you are doing well. Do I sound clear enough on today's stream? Let me know as well. I hope the volume is of a clear level for everybody to hear. I also released the very first initial thoughts with regards to the winter season coming up, believe it or not. And that video is available for you to check out. And also, I'll try and leave a link in the description below for that video, actually. And also, that publication has been released now on markvoganweather.com, so on the website. And I'll also try and link that as well. We'll have a very quick scan through that, but obviously it is a global weather report, so I want to kind of stick to the task at hand, looking at the global picture as opposed to winter or indeed Europe. We obviously spend the period between Monday and Friday, the working week, looking at the UK, Ireland and Europe specifically. So I try to kind of stick the weekend to Tropical Outlook. Check out yesterday's Tropical Outlook, looking at the prospects of possibly the MJO rotating back into the Americas, back into the Atlantic. And with the Pacific wakening up and some model guidance suggesting that we have some sort of tropical activity in the East Pacific, that would suggest that the MJO is possibly pushing eastwards through the Pacific and into the Americas, into the Atlantic, and we are likely, as we progress, not so much in July, but into the month of August, likely to see the Atlantic coming back to life once again. So this lull at the moment has been expected both by myself and other agencies. Not that I'm an agency, I'm a mere amateur trying to provide a weather channel that is suited to yourself, the listener, trying to make it a little bit more understandable, breaking down some of the complexities of weather. And that is the goal here on Vogan Weather on YouTube, to try and deliver a unique product that perhaps you're not getting elsewhere. There is many, many great channels out there. Gavin Partridge's Gav's Weather Vid is a terrific channel. He's been doing a lot of work with regards to the autumn season. So I do encourage you to check out Gav's Weather Vids if you haven't already done so. And share the love with other folks. Share his channel. Hit the like button on his videos and subscribe to the channel. I would greatly appreciate that. He is a big follower of Vogan Weather. So we try and bounce off each other, encourage each other, help each other's channels to grow. I know Gavin's is a little bit bigger than mine, but I think we're all heading in the right direction. So there's 16 concurrent viewers. Hit that like button. It would be greatly appreciated. And yeah, have we got any comments or anything to look at in today's video so far? So Gav says, good afternoon, Mark, and good afternoon to everybody. Just got popping out to get a bit of shopping for my dinner, so see you later. So I hope you enjoy your shop for your Sunday dinner, my friend, and have a good afternoon. Hope you have a good live stream this evening as well. That will be at 6 o'clock, everybody, by the way. So Mark says, Mark, have you noticed it's been like a trend over the last few years? Heat spikes around the 19th of July. I did happen to see your comment, Mark. Don't always get the chance to reply, my friend. It can sometimes be a little bit busy, so I do apologise for that. But yes, you do make a very valid point. And it looks as if we are seeing the coolest first half to a summer, really, since 2012, which is quite interesting. And I've kind of linked that with some of the ideas with regards to the winter season as well. Paul James says that there is no storms here again. I'm assuming you're talking about down in the Hampshire area, my friend. Are you referring to thunderstorm activity by any chance? We certainly have got lower pressure now moving in. We've cooled things down. We did hit 31.9 Celsius at London St James's Park the other day. That was the hottest day of the year so far in the UK. I think it only managed to hit 30 Celsius once, and then it dropped back to 28 something, I think, at Heathrow yesterday. So it was a one-day affair with regards to 30 plus Celsius. We had obviously 2 days in June, but all in all, I think that's the third day this summer so far of 30 Celsius or above somewhere within the UK. Paul says, yes, Mark, no storms here at all. Very strange. We got a technical heat wave, Ben Ente says, and yes, that is correct, because we've had 3 straight days above 28 Celsius, especially in the southeast of the UK, where the criteria is 28, especially around the Greater London area. You have to hit 28 Celsius or above 3 consecutive days in a row. That criteria drops to 27, I think, between Birmingham and London, for example, and then it's 25 Celsius 3 days in a row for the rest of the UK, including obviously Northern Ireland. I reckon the Republic of Ireland is the same also. So yeah. And have you noticed that we've started to change the pattern slightly with that kind of influence of warmer conditions now? I'm pretty sure in my July outlook I said that there would be a fight between the trough to the north, ridge to the south over Spain and Portugal, and it would be the battle between the trough to the north and the ridge to the south. What wins the battle? And it looks as if we're starting to see the Iberian Ridge build a little bit more towards the UK, which is then bringing that warmer conditions, and we've changed the mean flow within the atmosphere, the mid and upper levels and down at the surface. Instead of it being a west and northwesterly flow, which has been the primary default setting since the beginning of summer, meteorological summer, which is obviously the 1st of June, it's been generally in a kind of west and northwesterly direction, but I'm noticing we're starting to change to a more west to southwesterly direction. Now, this week, we've got a very distinct positive North Atlantic oscillation, strong negative over Iceland, strong ridge down over the Azores, Iberia, and we've got generally a westerly flow. Now, a lot of the models have had kind of a below average week. It'll be interesting to see if they're slightly overdoing the cold anomaly. But I just feel kind of like we've seen in the month of June, we're kind of turning a corner slightly here, and it's very, very similar in terms of the overall driving mechanism of the atmosphere. June and July have played out very similar. Cool, distinctly cool first half and a warmer second half, and I think that is what's going to take place during the month of July. And that cold anomaly that we've got at the moment will be interesting to see in terms of how much we chip away at that cold anomaly as we go through the next couple of weeks of July here. So let me see here if we've got any other interesting comments to look at. We've got 18 concurrent viewers at the moment here. I do greatly appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to check out the live stream this afternoon. Ben says, I had a thunderstorm last night, nothing special. And we've literally had no thunderstorm activity up here across the far north. Obviously, you don't tend to get as much in the way of thunderstorm activity up across northern UK compared to the southeast, for example. Always regard the southeast of England kind of like the continent. Obviously, it's closest to the continent, but that small stretch between Europe and the UK here, generally speaking, obviously you get a lot of heat coming off France, coming off the Low Countries. It doesn't take a huge amount to then push that across the Channel or the North Sea or the Dover Strait into the southeast UK. It's always that. And also Ben says it got to have been one tropical night. I think he's saying, have we seen a tropical night so far this summer? I'm not overly sure, if I'm being honest. Lindsay says, Ben Enty, I love a thunderstorm. The heavy rain is amazing. I told Marv Vogan last night I wanted to go out in the garden in the rain. Yeah, we were sitting out in the conservatory last night having a bit of a late dinner, and I must admit I love the sound of rain falling off the conservatory roof or the windows. When I spent 2.5 years in the truck, it's kind of like a bit of a kind of smaller version of a caravan. I don't know what folks are like, but I love the sound of rain either in the truck or a caravan. It's very kind of similar resemblance to a caravan within the truck. But I must admit, I love the feeling of the wind shaking the truck about at night time when you are trying to sleep. It actually helped you kind of fall asleep almost. But yeah, I must admit, there was something special about a good old thunderstorm. And unfortunately, we tend to be starved of thunderstorm activity up here across the north of the UK. Jim is also present this afternoon. Hello to you, Jim. I hope you're having a good afternoon, my friend. Hope you've had a good week just gone. Ben also says, if August is warm, great example of backloaded summer. If it cold, we got cold summer. We've also got Carol present as well. We're praying for dry weather to get our hay made. Carol, whereabouts are you tuning in from this afternoon? I'll be quite curious to find that out. And Ben says also, yes, I do love great thunderstorms. Get to somewhere hot like Florida, for example, the lightning capital of the United States. You pretty much can almost set your watch every afternoon, and you can get the blow up of thunderstorms as the winds converge over the Florida peninsula, and you get this big turn cumulonimbus clouds. Spectacular stuff. Must admit, over Europe, a couple of times I've been when I was younger. A couple of very, very loud thunderstorms within the Alps of Austria. I can remember that back when I was quite young. A couple of nights in a row, some really, really powerful thunderstorms. And I think the sound bounces off the mountains surrounding, and it really does create quite the... I could understand why it would be scary at the same time. So Carol says, so she's near Stirling. My mum and dad happens to live in Kirkintilloch. I don't know, I don't think they're on today's live stream just yet, but they're not too far away from you, Carol. So, yeah, let me just have a very quick check to see if I've missed anybody. I don't think I have. So, yeah, let's crack on here. And I want to very, very first and foremost talk a little bit about the ideas that I produced a couple of days ago. This is the Global Weather Report, so I'm only going to skim over this. But you can go on to marvoganweather.com and check out the recent article. So it's early thoughts in winter 2024-25 and factors to consider even in midsummer. So as I said the other day here, this is a quick and dirty look at the factors that need to get taken into consideration with regards to the upcoming winter season. Yes, it is still months away, and yes, it is... a lot of it is looking at different teleconnections, etc., etc. This is not a forecast by any stretch, but we're looking at years where La Nina developed. Now, there's pretty good cross-model agreement that the La Nina will eventually develop. It's been slow going, but we are likely to see a burst of stronger easterly trade winds over the equatorial East Pacific. That should allow some of that cold waters deep below the surface to rise to the surface. We should start to see those waters cooling off. And then, obviously, we know that there is a coupling between atmosphere and ocean. So it is a coupled system, and it takes time for the atmosphere to lock on to that shift in the sea surface temperature change. So we are expecting between July and September for the La Nina to come on. And these are the years by meteorologist Matthew Euler based in the United States. Spot On Weather, a great YouTube channel. I would encourage you to check that out if you haven't already done so. And Matthew picked out the years 1985, 88, 95, 98, 99, 2000, 2007, 2010, 2011, 2016, 2020, 21 and 22. These are the years where La Nina developed between July and September. And I've added in the dots. The purple dots represent where the winters were generally cold or significant cold spells during that particular winter. So I had 1985, 95, we had December of 95. Right at the end of the year, 1995, we had minus 27, a tie for the all-time UK record set up in Altnahar of minus 27. We had warm winters, 98, 99. 2000, generally it was cold across the northern UK, not so much England and Wales. 07 was a warm one, but we did have 2010, obviously the December to remember. 2011, we know that the majority of Europe was very cold during 2011, early 2012. 2020 was an interesting year, by the way, and we've got not exact, but slightly similar sea surface temperatures now compared to then. We've got other aspects to consider as well with regards to 2020-21. But remember 2021, February produced minus 23 at Braemar. That was the coldest UK temperature since 1995. 2021 and 2022 had generally a warmer winter, 22-23, but we did have a decent start to winter where it was cold in December. So I'll talk a little bit more about these La Nina years. Show this. This is a couple of clips out of Wikipedia. Some of the impacts, both the summer and winter, globally in terms of what you would expect with La Nina. We've also got the cool June, July. Now, obviously, we are going to chip away at this cold anomaly that we've got at the moment here, but this is the first 45 days of summer 2024, and it has been cooler than average. You have to go back to 2012, the last time we had as cold of a start to summer compared to this year, and there is a couple of interesting years that compare that are kind of similar to this year. Then you have to go all the way back to 91, the last time we had as cool of a start during the month of June and July. This is, by the way, based on the Central England temperature, and that's a graphic courtesy of Neil Kay at the Met Office. We're also looking at the current and the future sea surface temperatures of the North Pacific and Atlantic. That has big impacts on the atmosphere going forward. This is the CFSV2 with a rather Madoki-style La Nina developing seen by the CFS. This is based on the December through February period coming up here. Warm North Atlantic. The coolest waters more towards the Central Pacific, which could be interesting. Generally speaking, the stronger the La Nina or El Nino, the warmer the winter tends to be. Just want to kind of point that one out, by the way. We don't necessarily, if you want a cold winter, you don't necessarily want to see a strong La Nina or El Nino. It tends to overwhelm the pattern, and I think that's what happened last winter. As I said, up until the 20th of January last year, we actually were running below average temperature-wise with a cool December, with a reasonably cool January as well, but it started to warm up during that final 10 days of January, and then it was a very mild February. That then tipped the balance. 2023-24 was an overall warmer winter due to that February. The NMME model shows a stronger La Nina signal, by the way. Notice that of that model. Now, we've got a West QBO. What is a QBO? It's the quasi-biennial oscillation, which is the mean zonal winds within the stratosphere over the equator. When the winds tend to be westerly, there is a general consensus. This is Rather basic explanation, but this is the best way to explain it to everybody. Everybody's got different levels of understanding, so I strive to try and make it both technical but also as simple as possible for folks to understand. But the West QBO, to the best of my understanding, is that it tends to have a favouring influence on a stronger polar jet stream within the mid latitudes during the winter season. So in other words, it tends to favour milder conditions and more Atlantic or Pacific driven influence on the winter. That tends to lead to warmer than average temperatures. But the caveat to that is that we've had some mega cold spells and colder winters with a west QBO. You tend to want to have an easterly QBO. That tends to have more frictional effects on the jet stream. It tends to slow it down, tends to force it to become a little bit more amplified, so wavy. Lobes of cold coming out of the Arctic, mild coming out of the subtropics as well. It tends to deliver something a little bit more colder with that weaker jet stream due to the East QBO situation. So we've got a westerly, and it will be a westerly QBO winter. You can see here past years. Now, I have also made mention of the potentially very busy tropics, especially towards August through October. That could promote early blocking, so negative NAO, negative Arctic oscillation, a colder start to winter. We've seen that kind of last year, and these were the tracks last year. And again, it depends on not just the busyness of a season during that August through October period, but where did the track, where to the move? Do they go towards the Caribbean and into the United States, or do they make that turn around the mid-Atlantic ridge of high pressure? That turn, that transport of tropical heat out of the tropics towards the pole tends to have a blocky influence. We can have heat wave conditions due to that, or we can have deepening of cyclonic conditions over the UK and Ireland. In other words, deep areas of low pressure, wind, rain, etc., etc. So, as I've harped on about for a long time now, this is going to be hinging on the tropics, what happens within the tropics in terms of what type of pattern we can expect during the month of August. So really there is a massive question mark over the month of August with regards to the pattern based on how much the tropics waken up during that particular time. So it really is a lot of uncertainty with regards to the August pattern. We're also hitting the peak of solar cycle 25. It looks as if, according to general cross-model agreement, cross-agency agreement, NASA, NOAA, etc., that we have peaked and reached the maximum of solar cycle 25. What does that mean? I personally think, based on my understanding, there is a lot of uncertainty with regards to the exact influence, if there is any at all, between solar and our weather here on Earth. But my understanding is that you tend to have a little bit of a faster movement of the atmosphere in the mid to upper levels during solar maximum, and there tends to be a kind of slower, possible weaker, possibly south displaced jet, and the potential for colder conditions during solar minimum. So solar cycle 25, it looks as if it's peaked. And what influence does that have? What I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and compare the years with both developing La Nina during a solar maximum or near a solar maximum, also the West QBO, and matching up these years and see what we find. Also looks as if we've had a weak or a minor sudden stratospheric warming, a rare event over the southern hemisphere. What influence may that have? There has been a relation known in the past anyway, where you get a rare SSW over the Antarctic, over the South Pole during their winter, and sometimes you can find that there is a stratospheric warming that takes place 12 months or 6 months later over the northern hemisphere, over the North Pole. So again, this is all kind of based on theory. It's not approved science or proven science with regards to that, but nonetheless, there is a lot of aspects to consider. So this is the general article then here, solar maximum years. So the last time we had solar maximum was 2014. Before that, cycle 23 peaked in November 2001. Cycle 22 peaked in November 1989. And then before that, December 1979. So these were the last solar maximum years. And then close matches between solar maximum and developing La Nina. 88 and 2000 appears to be closest. So in 1988, the year before the solar maximum, and 2000, the year before solar maximum 24 occurred in between the developing La Nina years of 2011 and 2016. Going to try and combine solar maximum, developing La Nina, and West QBO years and add that to the article when I get a chance. So that article is freely available on the website. You can check that out at your leisure. Let's have a quick look and see who we've got on. So we've got Andy, we've got Jay, have also joined the chat. I would greatly appreciate if you could hit that like button. It would be very helpful indeed. So thanks very much for tuning in this afternoon. Jay, could you do me a slight favour, my friend, and put the English translation onto that? I would greatly appreciate that, so that I can read out your comment, because unfortunately it appears to be Spanish by the looks of it. I would greatly appreciate it if you could translate that to English, not just for myself, but everybody can read your comment as well, because it would be nice to see what you're writing here. So Ben says that 1995, my first Christmas. I can remember that. I lived in Fife at the time, and my grandparents were over, and they were living. They've always lived in Northern Ireland, and they were here for Christmas. They used to come every Christmas to see myself, my brother, and my mum and dad, and they were meant to be getting the train back to Stranraer to get the ferry back over to Northern Ireland, and the diesel in the trains had froze up due to that. That was the time that Glasgow hit an all-time record of minus 20 Celsius, and Altnahara hit minus 27. I think there was a few spots in the Central Belt, especially down in the area just to the south of Edinburgh. West Linton, I'm sure, hit minus 26 on that night. I'm sure it was Hogmanay. 1995. It was like the 30th and 31st of December 1995, and that really was an outstanding spell of cold weather for the UK. But incidentally, I think the rest of that winter into January and February of 1996 was quite mild, actually. And that's another thing to consider. Developing La Ninas tend to have front-loaded winters, so it tends to be colder during the first half, milder during the second half. That's another thing that is worth considering. So Paul also says very humid the last 3 days here in Swindon. Anyone else had this? Yes, Paul, it has, not obviously to the same levels as down in the south of the UK, but even up here across the north, it has been very muggy. That's been notable. Even though the air temperature's only been around 20 Celsius for the last few days, Lindsay and I both noticed that it's been very, very sticky. And even my overnight minimum Friday into Saturday only dropped to 15 Celsius. Last night, after the front moved through, it dropped to 6 this morning. So that's quite a contrast between Friday into Saturday and Saturday into Sunday. Staying at 15 yesterday morning, down to 6 this morning. And that is the beauty of a cold front moving through. It just cleaned the air out, but it still actually feels reasonably warm out there this afternoon. It was meant to be 16, 17, but it's actually got close to 20 Celsius yet again up here, especially with the help of July sunshine. So Katrine says, I was living in Bar Hill in the southeast of Ayrshire between 91 and 95. So, Katrine, you're down in England now, I think. Am I right in saying that? But yeah, down in southeast Ayrshire between 91 and 95. That's quite interesting, actually. So I've been up here across the north of the UK, actually. It's 4 years back yesterday. I started my job up here back on the 20th of July 2020, right in the heart of COVID, actually. And then before that, I lived down in the Central Belt, generally between, I moved to Scotland in 1990. But I'm kind of digressing, I suppose. So I might get back to the task anyway of delivering the weather rather than talking about my life history. I'm sure folks haven't tuned in to listen to me talking about myself. So yes, let's crack on and see. Busy chat. Continue to talk amongst yourselves while I talk a little bit about global weather. I would certainly encourage you all to interact. Hit that like button if you haven't already done so, and it certainly helps the algorithm of the channel. So where are we at? This is the year-to-date temperatures according to the CDAS 0.5 data. So this is since the 1st of January right up until today, Sunday the 21st of July. We're pretty much sitting on the halfway point, or actually we're past the halfway point of the calendar year, and it's looking rather warm. No real surprise there. Across the majority of the world's land areas, we are sitting firmly warmer than average. There's a few spots that are actually running below average. We've got southwestern China that continues to drive that cool anomaly. Pretty much all of Europe is warmer than average. Not absolutely everywhere. Ireland and Scotland is actually close to average for the calendar year. We've got a few spots in equatorial Africa. We've got a below average across the northern territories of Australia, ever so slightly anyway. Near average, Tasmania, down towards Victoria and New South Wales. Close to average across New Zealand. There's that below average across Argentina and parts of southern Chile. We've got below average conditions. We've got a little bit of below average across parts of northwest Montana, extending into southern Alberta. We've got close to average across parts of the Northern Rockies, as you can see here. But looking at Europe for the year to date, and we've got the Northwest Highlands and Ireland is clinging on to close to average overall for the year so far. But as you can see here, the majority of mainland Europe is running above average in terms of the temperature anomalies. The last 45 days has looked like this. So the UK running below average, Ireland running below. We've got France. Most of Iberia is running below average. It has not been a particularly hot summer. Yeah, we've had some days running into the 40s, and like I said, we're starting to see that Azores high, the Iberian high, start to get a little bit more of a grip on this region of Europe, as you would expect to see. My thinking is, even with the June and July theory, that even though we've had a cool first half of the month, it's very, very hard to maintain a certain type of cool pattern during the warmest time of the year. And that's why I thought, just bear with me 1 second, I just need to plug in the laptop here because I'm going to run out of battery. There we go. I thought I'd plugged in the battery, actually plugged it into the mains before I started the live stream, but obviously I haven't. But anyway, like I was saying, that it is very difficult to maintain a kind of given pattern for a very prolonged period of time. And that's why I thought, even though the first half of June, the first half of July would be below average, I believe that we would see a change, some sort of a shift in the pattern during the second half of both June and July. That appears to be happening, and we are seeing more influence of warmer conditions from the south, the heat building across Iberia, and then knocking on the UK door, so to speak. And we are going to see changes taking place, I think, as we progress forward here. So we still have, for the upcoming week, big trough to the north, big strong high down towards the Azores, and we've got that westerly flow here. What wins out, whether it be the trough to the north or the ridge to the south, will remain to be seen here. We'll talk a little bit about that in a second here. But like I said, this is the 45-day anomaly here for Europe. Draw a line down the middle, warm in the east, very warm in the southeast of Europe, by the way. It's been brutal. I've actually got a friend, a work colleague, Radu. He is from Romania, and his family, majority of his family still live in Romania, and he had been saying that they've been losing power in their part of Romania due to the heat. Now, nighttime temperatures, I think Constanta dropped to only 29 Celsius, which was the hottest night on record from Romania, but daytime temperatures creeping into the upper 30s, to low 40s. That's been frying the electricity lines in Romania, has been causing these blackouts, these electrical outages due to the heat. So I think that has been the story, not just in Romania, but other parts of southeastern Europe as well, where it has been very, very tough on the folks down here. I'm sure they've not got a lot of air conditioning in homes in this part of the world. So certainly our thinking goes to these people in Eastern Europe, where it's just been day after day, night after night, of highs in the upper 30s, lows in the mid to upper 20s. Brutal stuff. And obviously, it's been a different story here in the UK and Ireland, but we are starting to see a change taking place. And like I've already said, August is going to be quite interesting based on what happens within the tropics. This is July, and as of Sunday the 21st, we are still below average, but I think we'll start to chip away a little bit at this cold anomaly. I think we're going to end up being below average in terms of the UK as a whole for the month of July. And we've not seen a cooler June, July probably since 2015 in the UK. But this is how it's looking so far for the next for the first 21 days of July. Extreme heat across Eastern Europe and cool across the west of Europe here. And this is kind of going along with the ideas that I've had for the summer as a whole. So let's have a look and see what is taking place around the world. In terms of the temperature anomaly for July, this is how things are looking here. And we've got below average across parts of the central United States. We've got a very cool first half to July. Southern reaches southwestern parts of Brazil into Paraguay, Argentina, parts of Chile below average. But Argentina's had a very, very chilly spell during June and through July so far. Brazil running warmer than average here. Most of Australia is actually running below average. We've had some very, very cold nights in recent times in Queensland, and obviously that's the tropics, so quite a notable chill in parts of northeastern Australia in recent times. The Indian monsoon is above average so far, but we are going to start to see a weakening of the Indian monsoon. We've got it generally across southern areas of the country. We've had a circulation develop in the northern Bay of Bengal. That's the first named system, or the first system to develop, I believe, of the season within the Indian Ocean, the Bay of Bengal to be exact. That is helping drive some moisture into the northeast of India. We've also had the monsoon trough generally across southern areas of India. So the Western Ghats region has been seeing some mega rainfall in recent times here. And like I said, generally speaking, it's actually ahead of schedule in terms of the overall monsoon so far. But I think we're going to start to see the monsoon easing its grip. And a large reason for that is the MJO is likely to move through the Pacific, and it's going to start to see subsidence over the Indian Ocean and over India. That should start to put a little bit of a cap on some of the convection, some of the rainstorms that we're seeing down in South India. We've also been seeing the Mayu front, should I say, sorry, that the seasonal frontal system that kind of sits between the Tibet Plateau and up to Japan here. Now, where that frontal system sits, we'll see heavy rainfall and flooding every year at this time. But where it isn't positioned, you're seeing generally very hot conditions and dry conditions. Places such as Shanghai on the coast of China, east coast, we're seeing temperatures around 38 Celsius by daytime. And I think one of the nights was actually the warmest on record in Shanghai. It only dropped to 31 Celsius for a nighttime minimum here. But underneath that Mayu front, that seasonal front that flexes back and forth due to the position of the jet stream, you tend to find flooding rainfall. And we've seen that in some parts of northeastern China in recent times. Record-breaking rainfall within a day or a couple of days. We'll talk about that in just a second here. It looks as if Kazakhstan, most of Kazakhstan through the first 21 days of July is running colder than average. There's the heat across much of Europe, especially Central and Eastern Europe. In terms of Africa, we've got a couple of areas within equatorial Africa running slightly below average. Right down in the very southern tip, it looks as if South Africa, for example, is seeing quite a cool July so far. and Alaska is running quite cold compared to average overall. So let's have a look and see what the precipitation of the GFS is looking like for the upcoming 7-day period. You can see here that we've got a very, very wet area across the United States, particularly so from central and south Texas right the way up into the mid-Atlantic and the northeast. Now what is happening is we've got that strong ridge of high pressure over the western United States, and we've got a strong Bermuda high off the east coast. What that's doing is that Bermuda high over the western North Atlantic is driving moist air up through the Caribbean, Gulf of Mexico, and into the southern United States. Meanwhile, the high over the western United States is driving cooler, drier air into the heart of the central United States, and there's a clash zone between Texas and parts of the northeast. And we're going to see very significant rainfall over the next week to 10 days in this zone between Texas and southern New England. So that'll be good news, especially for drought areas that have been building over the eastern United States during the last 4 or 5 weeks. We've got the fairly dry conditions across the majority of South America away from the far north, the tropical north. Not a huge amount of rain, if you notice, across the main development region in the Atlantic. And the reason why is we've got widespread sinking at the moment. That has put a lid on the tropics within the Atlantic as well as the dry air. It looks as if we've had the highest concentration of dry, dusty Saharan air, with the Saharan air layer, or known as SAL, S-A-L, Saharan air layer. The concentrations of that SAL has been the highest in about 2 years. Now that's quite normal. We see that in June, July. Then as we move into the month of September, the dusty air tends to become a little bit more mixed out over the Atlantic basin. As we move through August, the combination of dusty air and shear tends to drop off, especially when you've got a La Nina in the East Pacific and a warmer than average Atlantic basin. Check out the tropical outlook if you're interested in knowing a little bit more about the tropics and what's going on and what is expected to come as we move forward. Check out yesterday's tropical outlook. That is every Saturday during off times, but then once the tropics start to waken up, I'll be talking about that in quite a lot of frequency. We'll do it every day, every second day, when there's stuff to talk about. But generally, during the quiet time of the season, it's every Saturday there is a tropical outlook. Moving forward here, it looks as if we are going to start to see things drying out across India. Across the north, over the next 7 days, it looks as if that's where we're going to see the heaviest rainfall. Remember, we've got that circulation in the northern Bay of Bengal. But look at how it starts to dry out, seen by the GFS, over southern areas of India. Because we're going to start to see that area of enhanced convection start to move away from this region into the Western Pacific, we're starting to see the Western Pacific waking up. It has been an incredibly quiet season globally, and I said in yesterday's video that 75% of the tropics, I believe, is in the Pacific. Only 25% is tropical activity is in the Atlantic basin. The Pacific being so much larger than the Atlantic, that is where you tend to have the biggest amounts of tropical cyclone activity. But the West Pacific, as the MJO starts to move into the West Pacific, we're going to start to see this area waking up as we go forward. And we're actually seeing that right now. If you look at what's going on within the global tropics, it is the West Pacific that is seeing named systems. If we blow this up, this is a tremendous tropical site, by the way, CIMSS. I believe it's based in Wisconsin, and this is a look at the live tropical systems. We've got Gami, I think it is, just to the east of the Philippines, and we've got tropical storm, newly named tropical storm Praparun, I think that's how you pronounce it. That's moving into southeast China over the next 24 hours or so. Doesn't have time to develop into a typhoon itself, but you can see here it's moving into Henan province of China over the next 24 hours, while Gami, it's probably not even that pronunciation, but it's expected now. It actually was expected to become a major typhoon, but it looks as if it's going to stay. It's forecasted by the JMA to be a Category 2 as it moves northwestwards here. But this is the only tropical activity at the moment in within the global tropics. The Atlantic is quiet, the East Pacific is quiet, and the Indian Ocean, despite having a circulation develop in the Bay of Bengal, we don't have any cyclone to speak about in this region either. And that will not be the case going forward as the MJO starts to move eastwards here. So based on the rainfall over the next 7 days, how is that response? So the biggest amount of rainfall compared to averages in the West Pacific, as you can see here, we're going to start to see, there's that Mayu front, by the way, extending from the Tibetan Plateau across the north of China, up into the Beijing region, Inner Mongolia, northeastern China. This is where the front is going to position itself, according to the GFS ensemble. To the south of the front, it's going to be hot, so we're going to have above average conditions over the majority of east and southeast China here, even northwestern China as well. No rain to speak about, as you would expect, across the Middle East, the north of Africa and South Africa. It looks as if we've got largely drier than average conditions across most of Australia also. And in terms of Europe here, it looks as if this is going to be the next 7 days in terms of rainfall anomaly over our part of the world here. So it looks as if it's got close to average across parts of eastern Scotland, but generally speaking, it's drier than average over the next 7 days in the UK and Ireland and Western Europe here. So based on the rainfall anomaly, this is how the temperatures are going to respond to that. And you can see here that we've got a cooler India, northeast India above average, south India is above average. We've got obviously warmer than average conditions, hot conditions at the moment across northern portions of the African continent. We've got slightly cooler than average conditions across the equatorial Africa region. The reason being is we've got the convection, the African easterly jet rolling across here. We're seeing waves develop here. Initially over the Ethiopian highlands, they developed, that's where they originate from, and then they ride the easterly jet, known as the African easterly jet, across the continent and then move out into the Atlantic basin, known as tropical African waves. Looks as if the majority of Australia is warmer than average over the next 5 days here. Look at the United States. That is quite a significant cool anomaly across the central and eastern USA, where we've got warmer than average conditions across the west. Much of central and western Canada warmer than average. And look at Alaska, despite the fact that we've had quite a cold first 21 days of the month in Alaska, looks as if the upcoming 5 days is going to be quite warm compared to average. Most of South America running warmer than average, and we've got cold than average across the far north of Asia at the moment here. But Central Asia is running firmly warmer than average over the next 5 days. Skipping on to the days 6 through 10, it looks as if we are seeing some of the cold breaking up. We've got one piece going east, we've got one piece going west. We've got cold and average conditions across western portions of Kazakhstan, western Russia. And you can see here northeastern Siberia is running quite a cold anomaly in the day 6 to 10. Texas up into the mid-Mississippi Valley, into the Ohio Valley is going to be below average conditions here. The west is still warmer than average, but notice we're starting to see cooler conditions moving into Washington and parts of northern California in the day 6 to 10. Again, South America and Australia running firmly warmer than average, as you can see here. The UK is still running below average. I'm going to find this as an interesting test coming up this week and over the next 10 days as we move through the final 10 days of July, and it's exactly 10 days to the end of the month as of today. It's going to be interesting to see this anomaly in terms of whether it's warmer or colder than average. So according to the GFS ensemble, the next 5 days looks like this here. Close to average, a few areas below, a few areas slightly above, especially across the heart of England. Look at France running firmly below average. Spain and Portugal, the majority is warmer than average with exceptions of the far north. Central and Eastern Europe still warmer than average. Then as we skip into the 6 to 10, this takes us out to the 31st of July. You can see here average or below average for the UK. So it's going to be interesting to see whether we see this taking place or not. Finally, let's have a quick look at some tweets here by Jim Yang. This guy is based in Amoy in China here, and this is a very standout. Now, this must be where the Meiyu front is actually situated. I could be wrong. This is in Henan province. Yanyang, I think, is the right pronunciation of this. I really struggle with these names in China, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. But this is an incredible rainfall amount. 711.6 millimeters of rain fell in this region of Henan province in China within a 24-hour period. And I believe this is a record-breaking rainfall amount. The data was interrupted afterwards. This is almost the equivalent to an annual rainfall in this area so almost a year's worth of rain falling within a 24-hour period. And we know that China, like the United States, can get some really extreme weather conditions. But you've seen some mega rainfall in recent times here. This is the result of that rain. So pretty crazy stuff coming. Some of these scenes coming out of Henan province in China. Here's another one here. This is back to the 16th of July. Today, many places in Henan were hit by heavy rains. The rainfall in Yanyang exceeded 800 millimeters of rain within a 48-hour period, so within a 2-day window. And this is what results with that incredible rainfall, mega flooding. And we've also seen record-breaking heat as well. So, underneath that Meiyu front, you get scenes like this. Then underneath and away from that frontal system, you get incredible heat. This morning, this is based on the 18th of July. It was unusually hot in southern China with the lowest temperatures. Chibi, a low of 32.2. Wuhan, 31.1. Shanghai, 31.3. And Shenzhen, or whatever, 31.1 Celsius. And then in the afternoon, these three provinces exceeded 40 Celsius. So pretty incredible heat, as well as incredible flooding, depending on where you are in China. This is some tweets here by our friend Maximiliano, extreme temperatures around the world, and we'll finish off with this. But some incredible heat in parts of Japan, both by day and night. We've obviously talked a little bit about the heat that we've seen in parts of the Balkans. Daytime temperatures 42 Celsius, 10th day in a row above 40 Celsius in a few spots in the Balkans. Crazy heat in Russia, close to 40 Celsius, even up into Siberia. But Romania, so my friend Radu, his family out in Romania, had the hottest night ever recorded. 29.8 Celsius was recorded at Oravita. 27.6 was recorded in Sulina. And parts of the coastal region of Constanta on the Black Sea coast. Incredible heat to speak about here. Let's just quickly skip. We've also seen record-breaking heat in Canada. In recent times, temperatures as high as 42 Celsius. In the hotspot of Lytton in British Columbia, India and Pakistan living through unprecedented heat, he says, with records falling every day, especially highest minimum temperatures, 34 Celsius by night in parts of India. So away from the clouds and the monsoon, you're seeing some incredible heat to speak about as well here. Kind of skipping through here. Cold snap in Australia. So exceptional cold temperatures in the tropical areas of Queensland, with Palmersville at 16 degrees north, which is not that far to the south of the equator, obviously. A low of 0.5, smashing its monthly record low that dates back to 1899. So some very long-standing cold records being achieved for the month of July in parts of Australia. Meanwhile, further north, in just its neighbour in Indonesia, overnight minimum temperatures, hottest July night ever recorded in Indonesia of 28.1 Celsius. Here, like I said, extraordinary heat in parts of Japan, minimum temperatures 30.4 in some parts. So very quickly skipping through because I think we've covered enough, and we've got 25 concurrent viewers. Before you leave the live chat this afternoon, I would greatly appreciate a like. I know I keep harping on about that, but it drives me forward to deliver this content to you. It lets me know that you're enjoying the channel, because if you're not enjoying the channel, there's no point in me doing it. So I do greatly appreciate everybody's incredible support. The channel is continuing to grow even at the time where it's normally quite quiet. This time of the year tends to be quiet. Winter time tends to be a lot busier. So yeah, minimum temperatures up into the southeast of Europe as well. Greece, for example, overnight temperatures only dropping to 33 Celsius. Several records in Turkey and Ukraine. So we're seeing upper 20s to around 30 Celsius for minimum. Anywhere from Bulgaria, Romania, up into Ukraine. Moldova, I think Chisinau, it recorded a minimum temperature, a record hottest night ever, 27 Celsius in Chisinau. I happened to visit there back in October 2019. Pretty incredible place to see, I must admit. So yeah, I'm just trying to see if I've missed anything else out. I think we've covered plenty today. I'm pushing an hour, so try to keep it within the hour. Record cold conditions again in parts of Australia. We've seen 0.1 Celsius achieved at Tars Airport, an all-time low since 1993. +1 at the Dali Waters. That's an all-time record low. So these are tropical areas of northern Australia, northeast Australia, the Queensland area, seeing some quite cold conditions in this part of the world. Even though it's winter time, it is typically mild because it is obviously the tropics. And again, the record-breaking heat that we're seeing, because we haven't got that monsoon moving up into Japan. It's normally the rainy season at this time of the year, but there is a delay in the rain in some places, and where that delay occurs, you see record heat as a consequence. Temperatures in recent times as high as 44.2 Celsius in Spain, 45.1 in the unofficial network, and Russia seeing above 40 Celsius constantly sit for the last 3 weeks. Next days, more and more records will fall in Turkey and Cyprus. Temperatures as high as 45 Celsius. So temperatures as high as 44 in Spain in recent times, and obviously we've seen the first, hottest conditions in the UK so far this year, a couple of days ago. So let me just see. I think that's us. So I'm going to call it quits to that. Let me very quickly just have a look through the live chat. I see David's joined in as well. David, thanks very much for checking in this afternoon. I hope the service went well this morning. Hope Mum's doing okay as well. Hope you're enjoying your weekend. We've got Jay continuing to speak in Spanish, unfortunately. I would greatly appreciate it if you had have been able to translate that into English so that everybody and myself can see what you're writing. Unfortunately, I cannot. I don't have the time to be able to translate on my end, unfortunately. So we've got Andy, got Jay. I'm just trying to see if there's anybody else that I have not given a shout out to before I round things up. So hope you enjoyed today's content. It's been pretty full on. Lots of things to look at, and that is the reason why I do these live streams on a Sunday afternoon, because I like to look at all things global as well as just the UK, Ireland, and our neighbouring European continent. But plenty of things coming up here in the channel over the next work week. European Outlook obviously starts back again tomorrow. That will continue through till the end of the working week. Then next weekend, Tropical Outlook live stream next Sunday as per usual. My wife and I are starting to prepare for our trip to Rio de Janeiro on the 5th of August. Now, my plan is to do a special Rio de Janeiro live stream somewhere. Don't know whether it'll be the hotel room or whether it'll be somewhere else, but I'm planning to bring the laptop with us to Brazil for our 10-day trip, and I'm wanting to do a special live stream from Brazil. Wouldn't that be pretty cool? I must admit, I'm quite excited to do that. So plenty of things coming up in the next wee while here. So do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday, your weekend, and I'll see you tomorrow with the first European Outlook of the week. Let's see if we can start to get something a little bit more summary and a more permanent basis as we go forward. So we'll look at that and plenty of other things coming up. So thanks very much to Paul James, Mark Kinnish, Katrine, Keith Fletcher. Thanks very much for tuning in, my friend. Ben Enty. We've got David Vogan. We've got Jim Bob. We've got Jay. We have got Lindsay, obviously. Thanks very much, Lindsay, for your terrific job doing the moderation. We've got Eddie. Thanks very much, Eddie, for tuning in. Eddie says, thinking about when the first cyclone will form when everything is normal in the Atlantic area. Everyone says that the Atlantic Basin, when do tropical cyclones begin to activate, is what Jay said. So yeah, the tropics certainly quiet at the moment. I do expect the MJO to move into the Atlantic as we move into the early portions of August. We should start to see that kicking in. And essentially June and July has been a very similar pattern. Something needs to happen, and I think it's within the tropics for the atmosphere to get that kick. Then we see a different pattern kicking in, and I think we're going to see that during the month of August. So we've got 20 concurrent viewers. Do me a favour, everybody. Hit the like button if you haven't already done so before you leave the live chat, and I'll see you all tomorrow with the European Outlook. Gavin's back. Hope you have a good live stream. Check out Gavin at 6 p.m. as always. He'll be probably talking about his autumn update that was delivered earlier today as well. So check that out, everybody. And we've got Sink Splint also joining. So thanks very much, Sink Splint, for checking in this afternoon. Everybody, enjoy your rest of your Sunday, and I'll see you tomorrow with more. Bye for now.